Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are taking a look real quick at SSS1-8. This was previously SS1-2, where we had kingdoms, and I should say before they got the new merge with into their third kind of unofficial season, as we talk about, which I'm just deeming kind of S1++, just because I just feel like it makes it easier. But you can see here, Kingdom 6 or 2, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are in this bad boy. And there has been some fighting happening, right? So this is TA server or the TA kingdom, right, for the most part, based on the groupings that we got from -8 and -7. Remember, this was split into 5 kingdoms each from the pool of kingdoms 1 through 10. And before, what this was kingdoms 1 through 4, and then 5 and 6 got added on. Then they added 7 and 10 to make the next season 2 or unofficial season 2 server, and then they basically just said, hey, we're going to take those first 10 kingdoms and we're going to just kind of re-divvy them up and split them up into 2 groups of 5. So the big battles that we've been seeing happening, or I guess for some that have happened, and this is just kind of me giving a status update because I haven't really been able to kind of catch a big fight. I saw one happening a little bit earlier, but in short, you have Forgotten Lands, which is pretty much TM versus GRZ from what I'm coming to understand, and you can see here that again, they're pushing up. I don't know what the plan is as far as if TM is going to be pushing past here, or if they're just saying, hey, we're just going to keep fighting at the bridge, maybe. But again, you can see that they're, for the most part, inside the GRZ territory. I think they had a small skirmish earlier. But again, this is kind of halfway into Forgotten Lands. They're just past ossuary for that Hydra, right? This is kind of the main choke that we often talk about. If you saw my video covering SS1-4, we ended up seeing a lot of great open field fighting that was occurring right here around the level 4 Hydra, because you essentially have a choke point that goes I guess you really have 3-ish, so to speak, right? Because you have the... and this is before you get to Raven Cliffs, right? So you have, if you go around wide here, around the west of this ossuary plateau, or Hand of God, just because it looks like a hand for me, you have the ramp choke here, right? So you have 1, 2, and then if you swing over here to the right, you also have this choke here, which would make 3 and then 4, right? Because you can't get anywhere up here. So that's kind of how you would look at this area. And then obviously you have your next choke points, which would be up here at Riveria Cliffs. And you got 1 here, you got 1 second on the ramp, and then you'd have to go all the way around here. So basically this way to hit 3. Because there's no way you can get through the mountain range, and this ramp access only comes back here. So you pretty much have 3 primary choke points going that way. Then you would have 1 here, which would be if you want to go deeper. And then you actually have going up here, right, which is kind of, there's like 2 choke points here. There's 1 up here, then there's 1 actually here in between the cliffs. So that's kind of where you end up seeing a lot of the bulk fighting that ends up occurring. But even right now, again, they're putting a lot of pressure right there on GRZ. The next fight is over here in Kaltia. And again, this is with, I believe, GOAT and TA. So we'll just go ahead and zoom in a little bit, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of lay of the land. So far, I think GOAT might be coming out for another engagement here. Oh, cool, they did. Either they did or TA backed off. I'm not entirely sure, really. Doesn't look like they took a lot of... Oh, I guess they did take some dead. But you can see some of them are kind of just hanging out, waiting. Looks like they're still building with the intent to build. So we'll have to see if TA comes back out. Looks like GOAT is trying to supply their troop lines, and I'm wondering if they will make a push here, because again, there's not a lot of TA reinforcement that's coming right now. This actually could be a good opportunity for them if they decided to push, but they'd have to basically bring in all their numbers, bring in some of these players over there, and then go ahead and try and make a play. Oh, look, we got Miss Kike? Is that how I say that right? What are we running there? Emrys Bakshi for the Cav. Trying to get a little pressure right there from the flank, doing a little run around. That's a lot of people that are going for that one person. I don't know if I necessarily... Oh, unless they're just trying to push them off of the flag, and that was the plan. Could be. So let's see if we're going to get any action here over. While we're waiting for some potential action, we come my boy Kambi Papi July. All right. We got Myths, Tampon, we see Juicy, Ronan, Agamemnon. I always think of Agamemnon from Troy with Brad Pitt, and I'm forgetting the other gentleman's name. Gosh, Orlando Bloom was in that, and I'm forgetting the other guy who was the captain, Hector. I'm forgetting what his actor's name is, but let me see. We got Bane, Shadow. Let's see if we can look at what some of. Let's look and see. Sometimes it's nice when you can kind of hang out and you can kind of see what some people are running. So let's look. We got Nico. I think this is. Oh, never mind. This is Guanwin Nico. So we're running Guanwin Nico. We got Veln Waldir here. We got. Looks like same thing. Veln Waldir. We got a Veln Waldir. Another Veln Waldir. We got Anika. I can't see who the other one is here. Oh, sorry, Nika Madeline that we're running. So basically running off tank. We got Bakshi Emrys. We got, Guano Nico from Khan. Let's see what else we got over here. This is Nico. I can't see the other one. Veln Waldir. Looks like Alistair Eliana. Looks like it could be. We got a Nico Kanara up here. Okay, and again, just kind of nice to show you some of the open field marches that you're seeing. This is Kanara Nico for Marksman DPS. We got, I can't see who the main Thea. Probably Atheist would be my guess. I can't see. Unless that's Nico's orange fur there. That'd be interesting. Let me see here. Sindrian. Here we go. Oh, sorry, Frager. My apologies. So we got a Frager, and I can't see exactly, but I will assume Frager Veln, if that's right. I guess I'll have to wait till I see a little bit more of that. Here we go with Veln. Alwyn. Right, my control tree buddy. A Veln Hosk, interesting. Running some 40% attack damage there on the mage. We got Kanara, probably Kanara Nico. Here we go. This is Lilia Veln. And then we have Waldir Veln. Or sorry, Waldir Lilia. Cool. Same thing, Veln. Looks like Veln Lilia there. Okay. Man, we're going to have to see if some fighting starts getting actions. People are like retreating, kind of going back and forth. A little skirmish right here. Not bad. Look like GOAT. How much longer they got on this? 46 minutes? On that build. Still getting a little bit of reinforcement. Did they address that rogue player that was just chilling around there? It looks like the individual is like stuck in a corner or something. Yeah, there's like no way out. It's actually kind of like a dead end. Unless they died already and I just didn't see it going across my screen. That very well could have happened. Okay, while we're waiting, let's go back up and check out North. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about SSS1-8. And I've alluded to a little bit of this earlier, but I do think it's important just for context, so that way people who might be tuning in for the first time have a little bit of an understanding on kind of history, and then along with like what has recently happened to kind of give you this impression. So let me see. I don't think there's any potential more fighting. Yeah, probably not. So doesn't look like they're building anymore either, which is interesting, but okay. Yeah. Don't know how, I don't know really where. I mean, in these types of situations where you're deep pushed, right? Really the thing that probably benefits GRZ is just kind of hopping in and out of others' cities and kind of just focusing on picking off the overextenders, right? So in this case, Borhan, right, this is the person you would really focus on hitting, but you have to try and make sure you're timing it out, right? So maybe you guys are pushing out, 10 legions or 8-10 legions at minimum, and then you're focus firing kind of one at a time, and then once you pick off the stragglers, then you can go ahead and start kind of going up. This isn't really doing a lot. Like, I wouldn't do this in John's case just because you're having multiple people now hit you, so again, they're doing more damage to you than you're outputting onto them. And also, if you factor in kind of surround bonuses that can happen too as well, right, that just amplifies the situation even more. So, okay. let's go back to check out what's happening, and then I'm going to show you guys some leaderboards, just again to kind of make another point. And this is one that we have alluded to earlier, but I just want to make sure I'm not going to miss any potential action that could happen. No, nothing yet. Okay, so let's take a look here at some leaderboards, and we're going to show you guys, right? So I don't think Immortal's on right now, and I don't know if Squiggly Line Guy or IL, we'll say, is on. I think I might have seen, I think I might have seen Burning on a little earlier, but let me say that to kind of show you what some of the matchups are, right? So remember, you have TM, GRZ, TA, GOAT. TM, 3.5 billion power. Then you have GRZ, 2.3. So you got 1.2 billion power on them. Then let's look at TA, 3 almost 5. They're going up against GOAT, almost 2.5, right? So you have a bill power. So you got 1 bill plus 1 bill power for one matchup and 1.2 bill power difference for the other matchup. Again, it's just not really ideal, right? When you're thinking about it, which to me, I just want to point out is, and remember, there's multiple ways to play anything out. And what the position I like to usually come from is the position that would make the PvP the most fun and the most sustainable for a long period of time. However, the other side of that argument, or the other side of that position, is that, look, right, TATM are a family, and no one, and that's not to say anyone's blaming them for being as strong as they are or for having the power or consolidating the top players as they have. No one's saying that. But what we are talking about is this fine line between understanding that you have all this power versus it's like a want versus a need, right? In TA and TM's situation, they most likely want all the things that will give them the greatest enjoyment, which to them is, well, we'll fight together and hopefully other people will fight against us so we can enjoy. The problem is that if you're just going to end up kind of steamrolling people, that's just not fun. It's not. Sure, maybe it's fun in the interim, in the short term, for a day or two. I'm sure that's probably fun, right? Where you're getting some action. But the problem is that because you're basically sacrificing the health of that, not only the health, but the health and the motivation of players to keep fighting longer and to have more, not convergence, to have more, conversion of players that are in those alliances to actually then come out on the battlefield. And a part of that is because there's a power disparity that's pretty clear as day. And when you think of that as a player who's actually there on the field, that can be discouraging. Like, that's just not, it's not a motivator, right? You're not going to look at those power differential matchups as an average player and say, oh yeah, we can totally wreck face here. It doesn't mean that they cannot do something. It doesn't mean that they cannot have some wins or some gains. There's not, it's not, I'm not saying that it's always going to be a losing battle. What I'm simply saying is that there's a clear disadvantage and a clear advantage because of the power difference, right? This is also not to say that it's anyone's fault. What I'm simply saying is that if you're trying to look at creating an environment that is going to give players the most enjoyable PvP experience, this typically will happen. It's just a fact. It's more likely to happen if you have alliances that are closer in power rather than being far in power. And that's kind of the crux if you really think about it, right? This is like a big kind of elephant in the room topic or issue. I don't want to say issue, but challenge or hurdle, we'll say, where it's like this isn't something that's anyone's fault. It's just you have to understand how the optics look. How does it visually appear to the average player? And when you look at the data, like we covered in this kingdom before the fighting started, before level 1 passes opened, is that you ended up seeing, what was it, like 60% or 66%, 2/3 of the players, of the top 200 players were a part of TA and TM, and they had the bulk of the top 50 players as well. And then you look at, right, and Burning, I think he's number 3 or number 4, right, from what we looked at. Yeah, number 3, Burning. So, okay, cool. So we're probably going to see a little bit of PvP here. on their next push. Now, I think they've done probably 3 or 4 pushes so far, which, just kind of go to that extent. Now, in this situation, I also want to point out what we're watching here. This isn't a lot of organized, and I think, and let me be very clear with what I'm going to say next. In order to really truly understand power differences and power differentials between alliances, the requirement would mean that you're seeing 2 alliances at the same kind of high level organization and coordination that they're applying, so you can really see if the power difference is so overwhelming or if it's just a small advantage. And what I mean by that is, if you look at what GOAT's doing, and I'll just give an example here. If you look at what GOAT is doing right now, this is not necessarily the most ideal way to kind of do this. It's better to spread this out, right? So you should put people here in front of here like this and kind of arc it out. So that way you're able to hit them from multiple positions. If you have any flying units, that's something else too as well. My boy Meat Doctor there flanking with the Thea. But like that just kind of goes. Now, some of these guys are doing okay, but you can see some of these aren't even doing any attacking. And look at NASTi, right? He's actually attacking. You can see that the angle is actually working. And this is what I'm talking about, is having a heads-up awareness of spreading yourself out in that type of arc. This is one of the things I often talk about, right, when you're looking at just how to have good positioning in PvP, is you don't want to stack. TA coming across the bridge is an advantage for GOAT, right? Because they have to funnel themselves in kind of an overlapping or layering type of position, because they have to come over through essentially a hard or dedicated choke. And right now, this actually isn't bad. Even moving away a little bit from the bridge, right? So you can extend your arc. And the whole point of spreading yourselves out in this way is you take less overall damage and you inflict more overall damage on your opponents. So this actually is decent. This is good. It's not great, but it is better than what they were doing before. And this is what I'm talking about. This is a good example of, again, how you spread a little bit here. Again, as I said, it could be more, but this is okay with when you're looking. And now you're seeing, again, them most likely taking a little bit less damage and them hopefully inflicting a little bit more damage. Right now, TA is kind of falling back a little bit more. This is one of those things where now we look at it from the TA side. From the TA side, this is where you really, probably the benefit for you is just like pushing out all the way. Because then if you push out all the way, or you have a group that pushes out and then you have a few others that are still fighting from the bridge, because this way you're not taking multiple AoE hits on the bridge because you're all having to bunch, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm sure TA could probably just play the battle of attrition game at this point, right? Because their average players are probably stronger or just have some higher base stats, right, in general, because of the power. That's at least a safe assumption we can make at a minimum. But now GOAT kind of giving up their territorial advantage. And now they're allowing TA to come in. This is not something that GOAT should have done. What they should have done is maintain their ground here, so that way they could have consistently kept fighting here from a more advantageous position, instead of kind of falling back as much as they have. Now, TA kind of missed opportunity here. Actually, the moment that they started putting pressure and they started creating this nice spacing gap, that would have been the moment where more TA players should have came in. You fill the gap, and then you basically banana peel and you spread out, and you have any of your disruptors or your CC or your crowd control legions then kind of go in and do some of that discombobulation. So that would have been something nice to see. Again, we haven't really even seen a lot of flying flanks. That would have been something cool. Again, remember, this requires a heavier level of micromanaging, especially if you're going to run one unit that's a dedicated flyer from each of the players, right, where they have to kind of micro that along with fighting in real time, fighting kind of at the main forefront or the battlefront. But that would have been something that would have been nice to see. Why not have a unit of flyers over here flanking, basically disrupting these supply lines? That would have been something too as well. Or even flanking on this side and just kind of picking off the stragglers like Mandanese and Ronin. I mean, again, these are things that you can do, right? Flying units, in my opinion, should not be fighting heads up in a straight up fight. It doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that that's not the preferred thing, especially when you're in a situation where you're fighting over hard terrain, or I should say dedicated terrain where you have to actually go over a bridge or you have to go up a ramp, as an example, right? That's where flying units really have their advantage, because they can go around and basically try to split up your forces. You know, or even just kind of do a lot of poke where you're kind of whittling them down a little bit one by one. That's kind of more of what I'd like to see really from some of the flying legions. And again, we just haven't really seen any kind of good examples, or I should say quality examples of that yet, but I'm sure they'll come eventually. And even right here, right, you got some units, 1-2 units not doing anything. You got Ogre, Bane, Shadow. I mean, again, just look at the number of units that are not engaging at the moment. This is, again, this is what we also talk about, right? The importance of having everyone in voice, right? If you're able to. It doesn't mean everyone can. Maybe some people are fighting and they're on a lunch break at work, right? But this is also why it's important to first off, do not rely solely on voice. It's always a nice compliment if you can get on voice. When you are fighting. However, every player should have instructions that have been, and I say this all the time when we do these coverages, your alliance should be sending out mails that are laying out step-by-step instructions for what players on the field should be doing, and then you should be setting markers and having some type of like on-field general as an example, who's able to issue some of those commands on exactly what to do, or you have a dedicated unit that is there to use kind of text reactions on their legion, so that way they can kind of be directing on what to do. Now, the thing that would be cool is if you could have custom text. That's one of the things I really wish that they would add in, is where you could write in custom text bubbles, and you can basically have someone who's using, very similar like Shadow games, except it would say things like fall back, regroup, circle up, engage, right? Focus fire. Then maybe you can pin someone. Like those types of things to me would be great if we eventually get to that point. But at least being able to have custom kind of text reactions where you can write them yourself, and then when you react, everyone sees those. That to me is something I'd love to see. And again, TA kind of doing a little bit of what they should have done on that first go around, which is going over the bridge, filling into that space. And what's happening now? Now you're seeing kind of a landscape shift from, again, the positioning that you're seeing based on TA applying pressure into that open space, and now you're seeing GOAT a little bit more on the defensive, falling back a little bit more. Now TA is able to start branching out because, again, they've kind of lost their line of defense, has kind of been broken. So now you're seeing a little bit of the spread coming here from TA, right, extending outwards where they're not directly in line of fire from the main force here, and then they're able to do a couple pickoffs, right, like you just saw there with GRZ. And so now, again, don't get me wrong, I think GOAT, and this is why I mention this, right? Sometimes having a stronger alliance isn't all there is to it, right? Sometimes having, and this is why I'm a big believer, and this is why I also mentioned in the beginning of the video how just because TA and TM are stronger in power, how that can kind of lead the optics. That was pretty cool, that blink there from EX. The optics and how things look visually from power disparities, that can be a turnoff for those that are weaker. It doesn't mean to say, as I mentioned, as I alluded to this a little bit earlier, it doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed loss by any means. Because like I said, we haven't seen, what I would consider to be a quality or a high standard of what I would consider to be a high standard or an advanced level of group coordination and tactics being applied on the field, to where we could really see that. And again, you saw me provide a couple examples of how the fight was playing out, how it shifted one way, then reshifted again, and now you're seeing TA applying a little bit more pressure. GOAT actually has decent players here, but it just kind of feels like everyone's discombobulated a bit, right? And same thing kind of in the TA situation, unless, again, I don't know if these players are AFK, but if they are AFK, that would have been an opportunity for GOAT to apply pressure when they had more troops there to see if they might have been able to get something done. Or you wait for them to push over the bridge a little bit, you end up whittling them down, and then you counter push, right? Because, again, you could also take advantage of the units being AFK, if they are. So now you're seeing, and in these situations, right, having Agent right here with the GOAT, that's not the play you make, right? You don't want to just YOLO, because what's happening, and you just saw it right there. 2 legions went in there from Agent, and what happened? Did TA have to go and hit other people? No, right? They were just focus firing legions down. Again, one by one in that situation. So that was like a 9 or a 10v1 or 10v2. And those are the types of ratio matchups that you're looking for when you're trying to pick people off one by one. I mean, look how fast that died. Barely any damage was probably output on those TA legions. So it's a little bit better. Now, in this situation, they should be focusing this person next. And then, I think the same thing when you're looking at GOAT situation. Don't overextend, which is really what that was, right? You form staging lines, and then you go ahead and push appropriately when needed, right? But that has to be kind of a real-time heads-up play. And I think for a large part, what I've really been noticing, and I'm talking kind of outside of the initial setups or the prep, if you have like big groups or armies, like let's say after a level 1 pass opens, then all of a sudden now you're having the alliances that are kind of staging themselves at big areas before a fight. I'm talking after that, right? Because it's easy enough to say, hey guys, look, we're all going to fight at this time. Make sure you send all your units here after we capture the level 1 pass. And then at this time, we're just all going to go and fight. That prep is pretty easy to do. What I'm talking about more so is what comes after that. Once you're engaged in the war and you're having to, basically you're in now a real-time environment or a real-time fighting or PvP environment. Now it's really going to be a testament to kind of who is more, who is, I don't want to say stable. What was the word? I used a word yesterday and I can't think of it right now. Who's more composed? I think that's kind of along the line of where I'm going, right? Who's going to make the least mistakes, right? That's one way to look at this. But again, I mean, TA is doing a good job as far as pushing out, again, creating nice separation here and kind of creating their own, again, space or spacing, we should say, that's kind of dividing up the front line of GOAT and then where they are now kind of safely within the bridge, or I should say past the bridge. And now GOAT, again, we'll have to see what ends up happening. I mean, kind of spreading yourselves out like this, and then kind of waiting to re-engage. It would actually be nice if they could get past this little canyon or valley choke and then kind of be able to branch out in this way. But again, focus firing is going to be important. The challenge is if you're kind of fighting matchups one-on-one, and you're not one of the stronger players in the game, it's going to be more difficult, right? It's a lot easier to have everyone kind of gang up on units one at a time. If you have enough legions out there, you could even do things like dividing your groups into 10 or 15 and then saying, hey, we'll focus fire this unit, we'll focus fire this, and now you're kind of focus firing down 2 to 3 legions at a time, right? That's one way to do it. If you have AoE groups, you have your AoE groups focusing on the most dense areas or dense parts or sections of a battalion, right, or of the enemy's legions, right, is one way to kind of look at it as well. But again, there's multiple ways you can play it out, but it all really just comes down to, again, having good communication, having good prep before you start, and then having good real-time coordination as well. So let's see here what we got. Excuse me. I'm curious on how any of the fighting's been going up here. Let's see here. Probably, let me see. Is TM still? Yep, TM is still in their same situation. Our buddy Thainzong, man, get a little bit. Let's see what's happening in World Chat. It's a fair Jersey. It's a fair 2v2 war. They said with 1 billion power more in each alliance. I mean, that's what I said. And again, like I said, I do feel that factors in. That is clearly an advantage. And it's just, again, I think if you're looking at the current state of, so look, if I was to rate what I consider the current level of strategy, 1 out of 10 that we're seeing kind of game-wide right now, I'd probably rate it at a 2 out of 10. Because we haven't even scratched the surface on the potential. And that's not to say that all the kingdoms that I've watched PvP in are bad. It's not saying that. What I'm saying is that that's the current standard that we are at based on where everyone's current experience, knowledge level, and capabilities for what we have been seeing thus far, meaning that there's a lot of room to grow for what we could eventually be seeing. The challenge is that you have a lot of players and a lot of alliances and kingdoms that are playing CoD like it's rock. It is not rock, right? It is CoD, or it's Call of Dragons. You having the ranged PvP, having the flying force, right? Being able to have more of a focus and emphasis on open field, having the artifact usage. I mean, again, there's just a lot more. This game more so resembles, in my opinion, a traditional RTS. I mean, like a StarCraft, a Command and Conquer, an Age of Empires as an example. That's really where I see Call of Dragons at, as it relates more to the type of strategy and the way that strategy can be applied versus comparing it to more of a pure kingdom builder such as Rock. And that's why I say the potential's amazing for what we can still do. Shout out to my boy Duz. Let's see here. And so what we're going to do is let's go back. We'll just go back. I'm already at about almost 30 minutes. Oh, sorry. I was trying to read through some more. Let's read through some more. Maybe you should. What do we have here? My guy fought for hours and one was 0. Don't you fight a little then farm all day. Maybe you should come alone and set me on fire so you can see. Wow. Definitely aggressive. Friendly. TA will have won a long time ago, but it does not push like a real war. I mean, yeah, like the thing is that if and this is somewhat of a good point, depending on where they're coming from, but how I'm viewing this being said is if you're having good sustainable war, that means you're having good back and forth across a 24-hour period, right? Where you're doing stuff hopefully at your peak time, they're doing stuff at their peak time, and you're just trying to basically see who can push more during their peak time and then who can take less losses or lose less ground during their low time or their low active windows. And again, we'll see, right? You'll be able to see how these things go. If now let me point out there's a lot that goes into that. Again, I'm broadly and vaguely saying that. But you'll be able to kind of get an initial gauge on, well, okay, is GRZ, I had to remember real quick, are they going to be getting pushed by TM? Will they make it past this bridge? Will TM just keep pushing them all the way back to the gate, and it's just kind of a consistent loss, if you will, or net loss? Same thing here. Will GOAT be able to push past this bridge, or will TA just keep pushing them back all the way to the level 1 pass? I mean, again, those types of things will factor and tell you some of what you need to know. So, let's see. Friendly war is good, but it is necessary that it still be equal. Many GDB do not join the war so that it does not get really bad and they're bored. I mean, to be fair, one thing that could happen is they could just join GRZ. They could join GOAT. So, I mean, you have options. It's not like you don't. We accept defeat losses, but we don't do much drama. And Tamara's much more during that time, we just laughing inside in our alliance chat. War is never friendly. Yeah, for the most part. Maybe we should set Bear's Castle on fire to see if... Jeez. My apologies, friend. GOAT rally my base 3 times last night season, and we gassed don't do a drama here in Tamara's. Let's see here. A couple castles on fire would not be bad to increase the drama. These guys are intense. Then everyone will be bored in the end. A friendly war, and we'll have a good time. Realistically, that's not happening. Remember, players have different thoughts about it. Let's see. Let's make this season great again. TA versus TM and their allies. Let's split into equal forces and have fun in World Zone. I mean, again, this is something that I alluded to, right? It really what should have happened. Again, from how this is, and I mentioned this early on in the video, right? Is that they can play it however they want. My opinion is that if they're looking to get the most out of fighting, where they're going to get the most amount of engagement, the most amount of PvP, and probably have a fun time doing it, is you have TM versus TA, and then you put GOAT and GRZ on one of their sides, and then you fight it out, right? Now, bear in mind, this may not be able to happen probably until Zone 3 just because of where they're at. However, what I want to point out is that this actually, and we're talking where it is now. However, if they prepared this before they chose their starting regions, they could have already been doing this in Zone 1. So there is that. But again, that would have had to been done where you would have communicated that before you chose your starting zones and figured out those things beforehand. It's just, I mean, again, that's my view on it. I'm not saying the other way of doing it is bad. Which is basically what they're doing right now. It's TA going up against a weaker opponent and TM going up against a weaker opponent. Right? It just is what it is. I'm just curious. I just want to read a few more here. Be bored. How do you know if your opponent doesn't plan around your bases? This is meant to be friendly war. If GRZ is not online, a lot of them, then what is the point? Yeah, well, I mean, that kind of goes for anyone, more or less. Poor base, I do believe you could especially pace the power difference. What do we got here? Nothing friendly. If you neglect the castle, we will bake you. Ooh. I want some white macadamia nut cookies. Is my favorite. You can earn merit if you are fighting someone, but how will you earn merit if your opponent doesn't have a unit? That's a good point. Most of us is already zeroed unit anyways, so I'm out of this friendly match. And that's the thing, too, as well, is how long will GOAT, how long will GRZ be able to sustain? Because a part of what can be considered fun or an enjoyment from the TATM side is based on how long the fighting goes on for, right? So, because it's not like they don't want to PvP, right? It's not like you go and you ask TA and TM players and say, oh, hey, are you guys cool with just not doing any PvP for the entire season? I mean, I would imagine most of them would say no, just as much as I would imagine GOAT and GRZ would say the same thing, right? If there are what can be perceived as ideal situation, right? And the ideal optics to play out. So, and I think for the most part, this kind of tells the story, right? Is that TA and TM, even if GRZ and GOAT are fighting back a little bit, right? I think, so let me say this, a factor, this isn't what I consider the biggest factor, but this is a factor, and this is because it's more unknown at this point, is, right, if GOAT and GRZ were applying, right, higher levels of tactics and on-field coordination strategy, and, would that change things? Part of me wants to believe that it could. Now, I don't know if I'm saying it's going to be overwhelming, right, on their side if they were doing those things. But I do believe it could be enough where it would be interesting to see if it came out to more kind of even in 50-50, or if they would even be able to push a little bit. So that's my feeling on it, because we just haven't really seen that from anyone, right? And again, we're just using them as an example because that's who we're watching right now. So anyways, it is, man. Like I said, I feel for GOAT and GRZ because to me, it's not as though they don't want to fight. I haven't seen any claims or anyone say like, oh yeah, we're just cool with not fighting at all. Like, that's just how we want to play from now on. Like, I don't think that's the case for anyone. But it is hard to sell them fighting, and even more so sustaining. Like, I'm shocked. I will say this. I'm shocked that GOAT and GRZ agreed to fight at this point, right? Because this is basically what TA and TM wanted. And you basically just kind of gave them what they wanted. Like, that's how I'm looking at it, from an outsider looking in, and kind of how it looks optically, is why not hold out? And again, I'm simplifying as well, but why not hold out, right? Just speaking from their position, why not hold out and say, look, we're just not going to fight anyone, right? Unless this is the matchup that's going to play out. And if it's not, then that's fine. Right, you guys are welcome to do what you are, but you're not going to get any resistance from us. We're not going to fight. We'll build as much as we're able to, and we don't plan to take anyone else's behemoths. Hopefully, we can split things equally if that's an opportunity, and then bam, that's it, right? And you put the ball in their court, and you let them marinate with that. Let them sit with that for a minute. So again, who knows if there was pressure happening from them, were players threatening to leave or something if they didn't fight. Like, who knows really what happened. But I just think that they were in a position of strength, or they had more leverage in their position than they probably thought they did. And to see them now fighting in this way, don't get me wrong, maybe all of them want to fight. Like, I don't know. But maybe they took a vote and it's like, oh yeah, we're all going to fight, but we'll just fight until we have no troops left, right? Maybe that's what happened too as well. So, but like I said, I just think that they had leverage. Now they don't really have leverage in a way because they've kind of already started the battling. So at this point, it's just going to be how long are they going to last is how it looks to me. And then once they run out of troops for whatever reason, right, then you're going to start seeing, you're not going to see as much consistent fighting. It'll be more spread out. It'll be a little bit more sporadic as well. And that's, again, is that something that's going to get TA and TM's fix on? Because, with the way things are going right now, very similar to how things went last season as well with TA and TM, from what I understand, is that, there really wasn't a lot of consistent or continued fighting right after Zone 1. So, with that being said, do we think the same thing will play out here? I have no doubt that the highest percentage play is that will be how things play out, is that you're going to get however long sustained fighting here in Zone 1, but then the moment that, again, I give this a couple more days, probably at most. I mean, you already heard some people posting in World Chat that they're kind of tapping out. So again, I give it a couple more days until it looks like GOAT and GRZ will be tapped out. And again, this isn't anything against them. It's just, if anything, it kind of just hammers the point home more, is, right, it's hard to rally people's motivation. It's hard to rally their passion, their interest, their engagement when you have multiple factors that are just not really playing kind of in their favor optically. So But again, could they, even if they get tapped out in Zone 1, could they fight in Zone 2? Could they fight again in Zone 3? Sure, they could. But again, we'll have to see how long it lasts here. Like I said, I give it a couple days. That's my estimate. And then, we'll have to see how things play out. If they end up going to saying, okay, hey, look, we'll wait a couple more days and then we'll have a big fight. Or we'll wait till Zone 2 and then we'll fight again all out. Same thing, we'll wait till Zone 3, then we'll fight again all out. Like, who knows what they're going to do. But what I do know is that if we ended up seeing TA versus TM and then each of them took GOAT and GRZ, I have no doubt in my mind that we'd be seeing longer, bigger battles and more sustained PvP throughout the season compared to what the matchups are now. And that's the give and take you have to decide on, right? For me, I just always view it as how can we keep the most amount of activity, how can we keep the most player retention, and then how can we get the most out of the players that are here that's going to want to continue, it's going to want to have them enjoying their time on a day-to-day basis versus kind of feeling isolated and almost a little ostracized to a degree, which maybe some of the players from GRZ and Go do feel that way when it comes to the matchup that they probably didn't really want to happen. But so maybe it's almost kind of like a pity fight, right? Not a pity fight, but not like a depression fight, but basically kind of the lesser of two evils, right? Not even lesser of two evils, right? It's probably just more so the worst choice in their mind. So it just, again, like that's how I view it. And we'll have to see how things play out. However, if you are in SSS1-8, I'd love to hear, right? Again, are there game plans? Is it something that's agreed upon? It's like you guys are just going to fight, right? If anyone has any insight there, I'd love to know. Right, because again, these are just my opinions, my thoughts on what I'm seeing, on what has happened previously for historical reference, and then where is the likelihood of this going, right, for the duration of the season. But happen to be able to at least see a little bit of PvP, and so from that, lastly, let's just show off some leaderboards here for merits. I think I showed a little bit, but when we look at Alliance merits, it's not that bad, right, when you think about it. TATM, GRZ is close, GOAT is just a little bit behind. If we look at personal merits, here, Charles Burning's up there. We got IL and Ghost is up there. Calories? Dude, that's great. I love that name. Does. Sybil's up there. And again, I mean, it looks like you have somewhat of a healthiest mix, right, into the top 50 from what it looks like. So I'm curious what the bubble position here is, just because, again, it's been, a day and a half or so. They're already at 112,000. merits. I would imagine that's a decent good amount for how much fighting's been done. I need to calculate like how much fighting does someone get on average. Like if you're fighting, like if you send a march of 5 units and you're just and you're engaging and you're doing damage and they're doing damage to you, I'm curious what the merit accumulation is there for 5 legions being sent out, where you don't get immediately crushed, right? But you're able to, like, even if you're hitting them as equally as they're hitting you, like, I'm curious what that number would be, because I think that would also allow for us to tag the number of personal merits that we're seeing on the leaderboards and try to quantify that to say, well, this is about how much PvP that number means, right? Something to that degree. I'm gonna have to think on this. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Until next time, I will catch you later.